A few days ago, we got some pretty intense news that the US has added a $100,000 fee for new H1B visas. Now today I want to break down the details and more importantly what this means for software engineers in today's market. Okay, so first let's get the details straight because there is a lot of false information going around and I see people freaking out for really no reason. Now, as of September 21st, 2025, the White House announced that any new H-1B petition filed between now and September 21st, 2026 must include the one-time payment of $100,000. Now, current H-1B visa holders are exempt from this, and it only applies to new applicants. So if you already have a visa, don't freak out, this doesn't apply to you. Now, this is honestly most impactful for students, especially with F1 visas or who are on an OPT, who are working towards employment with the H-1B sponsorship. Now, for Canadians, for example, or Mexican citizens, you actually don't need an H-1B at all. You can be sponsored under a TN visa, and this has not changed. Okay, so before this rule, it cost employers anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 in fees to essentially file an H-1B visa registration. Now, companies are facing a 20 times jump in that cost, raising it to $100,000, right? So approximately 20 times more. So what's really changed here? Well, first of all, let's go over the numbers. So each year, the US still issues 85,000 H-1B visas. These are under a lottery system, 65,000 of them are regular, and 20,000 require a master's degree. Now, this has not been reduced, so it doesn't mean the number of visas is fewer. It just means that to actually register for a visa, it's significantly more expensive. And with that in mind, the demand for these visas is very high. In 2023, there was more than 750,000 registrations for those 85,000 slots. And there was a selection rate of barely 14% for the people that entered that lottery. Now, one of the major things that has changed about this is the rules of the lottery. So each student now only gets one entry in this lottery, no matter how many companies register them. Now that closes a loophole that boosted odds for some candidates when multiple employers all submitted an entry. This is actually one of the larger changes that ensures integrity because previously there were some firms that submitted dozens of duplicate applications for the exact same person, which significantly increased their odds. And then of course we have the cost, with this $100,000 fee, many companies just will not sponsor entry-level international students or candidates anymore because the economics just don't make sense. This means that these visas are mostly going to go to big companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc. But you should understand that most of these visas already were going to those types of companies, and now it's just going to be even more drastic. Okay, so let's keep going here and talk about the people that are really the most affected by this, because I think some people don't understand who this actually impacts. Now, around 71% of the H-1B recipients have been Indian nationals. And more than 65% of all of the H-1B visas in the United States are for IT, tech, computer-related roles. So this does drastically impact software engineering and the tech market in general, because this is almost entirely correlated to software engineering, right? More than half of the visas are going to software engineers. Now, this is what it means for most of you, right? If you're on an F1 visa or OPT, you still have that 1 to 3 year window where you can work in the United States. But just bluntly, your chances of converting to an H-1B are now significantly lower unless you can land a job at a big tech company that's willing to pay for this entry. Most of the smaller companies are just not going to sponsor visas anymore, and that pushes a lot of candidates towards alternatives, right? So you could go, for example, an O1 visa. This is if you can build up, strong credentials, you have publications, awards, projects. Very difficult to qualify for this, but some people are going to go for that. It also pushes people to move to other countries. If you move to the US, for example, and you were planning on going through H-1B and then potentially getting maybe like an E1 or E2 visa, I forget the exact names of them, and getting permanent residency status, green card, etc., it's unlikely you're going to be able to do that. So where would you go? Maybe you'll go to a place like Canada or the UK that's not as far away, similar culture, but also has significantly easier work to PR paths. Now, this also means that a lot of companies now are just going to be hiring remotely. So rather than hiring you to work inside of the United States, they're going to hire you on a remote role. And to be honest, you're probably going to be getting paid less. Overall, it is going to be harder to get legal employment physically inside of the US if you need an H-1B visa. Now, most of the North American citizens do not need that. So again, like Mexico, Canadian citizens, but for everyone else, if you're planning on playing that lottery, you have a significantly lower chance because it's unlikely you're going to get someone to pay to enter you. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting, right? This is what it means for US workers. So in my opinion, this is a pretty big deal if you are a US citizen or you are someone who is authorized already to work in the United States. Pretty much every year, we have hundreds of thousands of highly skilled foreign engineers that compete for jobs via this H-1B visa. Now, they don't only apply to jobs that sponsor H-1B visas, they apply to thousands of positions. I've literally worked with people that told me they applied to 5,000 jobs. Now, with this new barrier, there's just going to be fewer of these people that are going to even enter this process, like a lot fewer people. And that means that there's less competition, there's better odds that you actually get called in for an interview, you have stronger negotiating power, and you have more career growth in the United States. So if you are a US citizen, I think overall this is a very good thing for you. And it doesn't mean there's less foreign workers in the country. It simply means there's less people applying to all of the same jobs that you are applying to. So overnight, pretty much, a significant number of very skilled developers are just dissuaded from applying to US jobs. Now, I don't know if this is going to last. I don't know if this is going to get overturned. You can talk about the ethics and the morality of it. But the truth is, right now, if you are a US citizen or you are authorized to work in the US, even if you're from a place like Canada, for example, like I am, there is a huge opportunity to get your foot in the door before this gets reversed. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but the point is there's just all these jobs now that are going to have significantly less people applying to them, which means you have a better probability of getting those jobs. That's simply how it works. And I think overall, if you're a US citizen right now and you're in the tech sector, you're probably happy about this change. Now, for those of you outside the United States, obviously the calculation changes and you're probably not happy about this. You know, a 6-figure visa fee just simply doesn't make sense for most companies to pay, especially for mid-level or entry-level dev jobs. Now, it's not impossible, right? But you have to ask whether the value proposition still adds up. And what I'm going to suggest to you here is to have a little bit of a mindset shift. Go where you are valued, okay? Countries like Canada, the UK, the UAE, where I currently live, and Qatar, for example, are actively recruiting talent, right? They offer easier visas, better quality of life, lower or no taxes at all, and often they're significantly closer to your home country and far cheaper to live in. The United States is great. It offers a lot of benefits, but it's not the only place in the world where you can build a successful career. And most of the people that I know that live in Western countries that are successful are moving to other nations, moving to, for example, Dubai, moving to Singapore, even moving to places in Southeast Asia. Not all the best for developers, but the point is, if you're not valued in the United States, you can go somewhere else. Now, for example, one of my students in DevLaunch, Manib, actually landed a Canadian AI developer job in just 4 weeks and got work authorization pretty much immediately. Now, on the other hand here, I feel bad for those of you who uprooted your lives, took on student debt, and you put your future into the hands of the United States only to all of a sudden be hit with these policies out of nowhere. It sucks. I genuinely am sorry. I empathize with you. I can't imagine kind of the feeling when you saw that, policy come out. But in reality here, all we can really do is be pragmatic and take action on things that we can control. So I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to tell you it's all fine, stick around in the United States and just pray that you get a job. It's still possible. I think now is really the time where you have to just take action and take your life into your own hands. Now, regardless of your situation, if you want a personalized approach to help you land a developer job, whether that's in the United States or whether it's in Canada, Australia, UK, etc., then click the link below and you can book a call with my team and learn more about DevLaunch, because we have helped a ton of developers recently, even in this tough job market, land jobs, a bunch of which are not in the United States. Now, there's also some just good free information there that you can check out. So with that in mind, here's the truth, right? Nothing changes in terms of what you need to do to land a job here. Sure, you might not be getting the job in the United States, but you still follow the same process. Improve your online presence, improve your resume, niche down into a specialty, apply intelligently by actually contacting the hiring managers, master the interviewing process, and then simply perform during your interviews. Now, that's exactly what we do inside of DevLaunch with our students and why we've been successful. And again, if you want to check that out, I'll leave the link below. Now, we have students inside Bluntly who do need H-1B visas, and with them, again, our plan has not changed. We're looking for the jobs in different areas. We're searching for opportunities that are more realistic now, but in terms of what they need to do to prepare for the jobs, it is the same thing. And I want to remind you here that no one can take away your skills, right? They can't take away the value you provide, the things that you've learned, what you're capable of doing. And if the US doesn't want that, if it's not valuing those skills or it wants to make it harder for you to get a job there, then go somewhere else, right? And by the US doing this, honestly, they're going to lose a lot of top talent to countries like China, the UAE, where they're already hiring a bunch of them, and other nations that, are growing and actually are welcoming of immigrants and want them to come and help develop the country. Now, this actually ties into my personal story here. I saw a similar thing happening in the United States to what's happening in Canada right now. I built a bunch of businesses. I paid literally millions of dollars in taxes. I created jobs, but the system didn't value that, right? They didn't value entrepreneurship. There was endless bureaucracy. There was no support. The taxes were ridiculous. If you think it's bad in the US, you should see in Canada. And that eventually pushed me to move out of the country. Now, that's why I left. That's why I moved to the UAE, a place that does welcome entrepreneurs. It has low barriers. It's super easy to get set up here. And while that might be controversial to some of you, the truth is that that's where the incentive lied, right? UAE is incentivizing entrepreneurs, Canada is not, and it's the exact same thing now with the United States. They're not incentivizing tech workers to want to go there and give them a chance. So where are they going to go? Somewhere else, right? So the same logic applies here. Go where your work is valued, not where the system makes you fight this uphill battle. And to be honest with you, I know the United States is a good country and it provides a lot of opportunity, but there are a ton of other nations that are really on the rise right now that are going to surpass the United States very soon. And United States is not, the only place to live or the only place where you can be successful. You can have a fantastic life in many other countries. Generally speaking, right, the Western world is adding barriers while regions like the Gulf, where I currently live, places like Asia are lowering them, right? If one door closes, there's other doors that are opening, and you can look for the economic trends and see the insane growth of other nations, again, especially around this area like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, etc., even countries like Indonesia, Malaysia. So I'm just trying to be pragmatic with you. If you can't get a job in the United States, that's not the end of the world, and to be honest, it might even be a better thing for you. So here's the deal. You cannot control US immigration. I can't control it. What you can control is your skills, preparation, and your strategy. Look, that's what I focus on with my students. I'm not going to sit there and tell them, this sucks. Okay, let's cry about it. What can we do to better prepare ourselves for a job? We can become a better developer. We can have a better resume. We can master interviews. We can follow a clear, structured roadmap that actually makes sense. And we can take advantage of opportunities outside of the United States where we could actually get paid more money and have a better quality of life. So if you're authorized to work in the United States right now, I would say this is an advantage for you. Take advantage of it. Go out there, send your applications out before this potentially gets reversed. You're going to have a higher chance. And if you're abroad, then, look for other opportunities that you have available to yourself and don't just have this tunnel vision on the US. It's not the only place. Look, I understand this video will be slightly controversial. I don't know if you guys like that advice or not. I genuinely am trying to be pragmatic with you. Sure, it is still possible to get a job here. I'm not going to say that you can't do it and you should purely give up, but there are a lot of other places that are just going to be a lot more realistic. And if the US doesn't want you there, you shouldn't be climbing and fighting and doing everything you can to try to stay when they don't value your skills. That's just the way it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.